Did you get a bulletin in? Oh, that's right. Yeah.
That's just incredible. Well, good morning. Do not adjust your dials. I am Curt Scott. I am not the pastor of this church. I'm just here right now. Let me see. I decided to introduce myself today because of what I'm going to be talking about later, as I am city council in person for this district. So that is kind of the avenue that I'm going to be coming at you through today, among the usual. I'd like to draw your attention to our announcements. We're going to talk a little bit about being the church, which we do a lot of here. While you're pulling that out and taking a look at all the things that happened during the week, am I cutting in and out? I can't tell. Okay. I would just like to talk for a moment about Faye's Evelyn Bay, the coffee shop over there, which, as it turns out, both Adam and I have office hours at the same time on Tuesdays, which has become quite an interesting thing to observe. I didn't know this until I started doing office hours on Tuesdays, that on Tuesdays, and I assume many other days of the week, that coffee shop is just crawling with members of this church. And at no point since I started doing office hours as city council person has that coffee shop not been majority occupied by members of this church in one way or another, or at least every table that has somebody at it has a member of this family sitting there with them. And to me, that nothing says more about what we're doing, being out there, than that. And by the same token, if you drive by this place any day of the week, somebody is here doing something, if not 20 of them. Right. So, again, now that you have this out, I'd like to bring your attention to a couple things that, well, one of them isn't on there, which is what I do normally in this building, or have normally, depending on how people look at it, which is I teach a class on Tuesday night that is essentially the history of all things that led to here, biblically. So I put things in context, and then what I do for light reading in the summer is things like what I'm doing now is who sounds like Jesus now? Who's out there walking the walk, talking the talk, and taking the shots? For instance, last time we talked about Brian Stevenson and his clemency project, and that sort of thing. Another thing I'd like to bring your attention to, well, actually, a thing I'd like to bring your attention to that is not in here, but is inside of there, is we have the Children's Art Hub. And I'm hoping that after church, you will go inside and observe the art and the food on the inside, and not just hang out here for an hour and a half like we sometimes do. Yeah, I think that's it for, oh no, wait, I have one for Mary Norman, I'm sorry. On Tuesday at 10, it is ice cream cookie making time. So far, there are 2 people on that list, and it's very hard on the wrist because they do it the old-fashioned way. 2 cookies, squeeze the ice cream. Mary needs volunteers. It's Tuesday at 10 o'clock. And Wednesday at what?
Wednesday at 10 o'clock. That's
what?
When they put that ice cream inside the big
You bake them at Tuesday and you squish them on Wednesday.
We're dipping ice cream on Tuesday, and that's what I really need help with. We can't buy boxes of ice cream anymore, so we have to get ice cream on Tuesday. That's what I really need help with.
Diane will be there. She will be the one that does it all.
Baking the cookies, scooping the ice cream.
Right.
That ends this portion of being the church. You do a hymn now? Hang on. Mary's turn.
Chris had a question.
What's that?
Chris was raising her hand. I don't know if she was. Chris, did you have a question?
What? What did I forget?
Ladies and gentlemen of all ages, most of you know that the bank building is being renovated.
Oh, I did forget something.
However, to complete the project, there's stuff in that building that needs to go from that door to the black shed door. If we could have a brigade of people that could carry that across there after church today, along with the art exhibit, Larry and Jim would just find that to be an outstanding day. They have everything started, but they need the stuff out of the building. So if you could help for a couple minutes after church, that would be wonderful. And then please come in to the art gallery, look at the talent that our young people have in this church. And I know you come because there's food. So we will see you in after church. Thank you.
Can you hear me now? Okay, I I should warn you ahead of time that I've gone a bit rogue as a liturgist. For these two readings, for some reason, I found there were a lot of questions that I had, things I didn't understand, things I wanted to learn about, and educate myself. So I did that, and gosh, it was so interesting, worthwhile. And I want to share what I learned with you, because I think it's always good for us to learn new things and be educated. So it's just a warning ahead of time. The our worship today is from Justin Martyr. He was born, they figure, somewhere between 90 and 100 CE, and died approximately 164 CE, and I didn't know personally what CE meant. I imagine Curt knew what it is, but I looked it up. It means common era, and it is the secular equivalent of AD. So let's join together to read the call to worship. Oh, just a moment. I want to tell you a bit more. I learned something about Justin Martyr. I mean, his name, Justin Martyr, and I went, was he a martyr? And it turned out he was martyr. And he's known by Catholics as Saint Justin Martyr. He was an apologist for the Christian religion, and he was tried and beheaded for practicing an unauthorized religion. So be careful, boys and girls. Okay, please join me. We ourselves were well conversant with war, murder, and everything evil. But all of us, throughout the whole world, have traded in our weapons of war. We've exchanged our swords for plowshares. Now we cultivate the fear of God, justice, kindness, faith, and the expectation of the future given us by the crucified ones. Together, the more we are persecuted and martyred, the more others in ever-increasing numbers become believers.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. Don't worry. Be happy. Let me reach that one. Yeah. Come on over. Thank you. Come here.
You're on.
Where are you sitting? Okay. Well, good morning. Just a minute. We got a few more people coming. So today was Brinky's turn to bring a sermon in a sack. So we're just waiting to see if we've got more friends coming up. Isn't that fun? We've got lots of friends today. We had a crash and burn. That's the problem on his nose. Went over his bike. Not child abuse, just standard boy stuff. Okay. Good morning, everybody. Brinky's turn today to bring the sermon in a sack. Brinky, what did you? Yes, here she comes. What did you bring? Can you show everybody? What's in your sack? What is that? You know what it is? A wrench? You say wrench? Wrench. So we have a wrench today. May I show everybody? May I lift it up higher, please? I want to. It's a wrench. It's an adjustable one. So, why did you choose a wrench? I happen to know. He had this toolbox at home, and Mama was coaching him on he wanted to put the whole toolbox in. It wouldn't fit in there. So then they negotiated. I ran around the corner so I didn't see, and they negotiated, and this is what we got. So what can we do with wrenches? Yeah. What can we do with wrenches? Can you think of anything?
We can build things with it.
We can build things with it, sure. Is there anything else we might do? What do you think?
We can fix stuff.
Fix things when they're broken.
We can fix trucks.
Oh, yeah.
My dad's truck is broken.
I know, they keep working on Dad's truck, so that's a tool they know about. Well, thank you. What else could we do that's a little unusual with a wrench? What if we took that wrench and put it on a piece of drawing paper and drew around it? And then what could we turn that drawing into?
What if the clam gets on it?
I think it'll wipe off.
It will not.
Oh dear. Well, you know, if all else fails, moms have kitchen tricks that they can scrub it off with.
Okay, that's fine.
Well, I have seen them decorating trees before with different kinds of tools hanging from a tree.
Wait, if you get string and put it through a little hole, it could be a tree or...
True, you could have a tree of tools. No reason you can't. You get to make any kind of tree you want.
No.
Well, within reason. Okay. Well, they're very useful tools. Now,
My dad has one.
oh yeah, your dad has a lot of tools. He's a carpenter. He has a lot of tools.
And he cut wood yesterday.
Yes.
What if it's big snow?
Yes.
Because
So,
it's like that big.
well, yeah, he's a builder. Anyway,
TBI worker.
yes. TMI. Anyway,
No, TBI.
I
We gotta keep going here.
yeah. I think we're gonna turn this sucker around. Now, I have a weird question for you. Who made the tools?
Oh no.
We as,
God.
well, it seems like it, but actually we as people made the tools.
Well, God taught. I don't know how to say it.
But God made us, and He gave us brains to solve all kinds of problems we're fitting together. That's something to be very grateful for. You don't know?
I know.
You know?
I
No.
know who built
So anyway, This morning we're talking about, thank you God for helping us how to make tools, because it's amazing the kinds of tools that people are coming up with these days.
What?
So,
Metal.
I need a new person for next week. Do you girls know if you're coming back next week? Do we know? Anyway, we don't know. All right, I know I have more bags in here. Where did they go? Oh, they're playing hide and seek in the bottom. All right, so, Colton, will you bring the sermon in the sack next week, please? Will you be here?
I already did.
I know. It's your turn again.
I don't want to do it twice.
Oh, no.
I don't want to do it twice.
You can take it from Grandma's house.
I do too.
Oh, take it from Grandma's house this time, okay?
Why?
Because Grandma suggested.
Why?
Grandmas have good ideas. Go with the flow.
Why?
Well, that's our story, Morning Glory. Guess what? Now you can go play quietly with the toys and the drawing and all the stuff.
I'm going to be loud.
No, you're not. Thank you. Bye-bye.
I'm going to be loud.
Okay, time to play. Okay.
I'm going to go if you guys back over. I'm going to go time. You guys
Quiet. Lovely weather outside. Okay.
Kathy, that was really cool. I love that song. Thank you so much. He's really loves sax. So I'm back. So today's scripture reading is from Ezekiel 2, 1 through 10. And I might put Ezekiel in, and it turns out in English it means strength of God. And he was an Israelite priest and a Hebrew prophet and biblical visionary who lived during the 6th century. And it's interesting, I learned that he is represented in the Sistine Chapel as one of God's messengers. Ezekiel 2, 1 through 10. And he said to me, Son of man, stand on your feet, and I shall speak with you. Now the Spirit entered me when he spoke to me, and I stood on my feet, and I heard what was being spoken to me. And he said to me, Son of man, I am sending you to the children of Israel, to rebellious nations which rebelled against me. They and their fathers rebel against me to this very day. And the sons who are brazen-faced and hard-hearted, I send you to them, and you shall say to them, So said the Lord God. And they, whether they listen or whether they forbear, for they are a rebellious house, they shall know that a prophet was in their midst. And you, Son of man, fear them not, and fear not their words, for they are obstinate and thorny with you, and you sit on eglantines. Fear not their words, neither be dismayed by them, for they are a rebellious house. And you shall speak my words to them, whether they listen or they forbear, for they are rebellious. And you, Son of man, hearken to what I speak to you. Do not be rebellious like the rebellious house. Open your mouth and eat what I give you. And I saw, and behold, a hand stretched out to me, and behold, it was a scroll of a book. And it spread out before me, and it was inscribed before and behind, and there was written upon it lamentations, murmurings, and woe. I'm going to move this a little so I can see everybody. Is that better? Better for me. I like to see people I'm talking to. When I first read eglantines, I wasn't sure what it was. I thought it might be a plant, and it is. Another name for it is sweetbriar. It's kind of a pretty pink flower with kind of daisy-like structure. And when he said, and you sit on eglantines, I said, oh my gosh, we're going to smush all those pretty pink flowers. But then I realized that, of course, he meant it more symbolically, that you sit separately. And you are not rebellious, nor are you obstinate and thorny, but you are accepting and you are a believer and a true person of faith. Today's contemporary reading is from Alan Watts, who was a 20th century philosopher. He died in 1973 at the age of, relatively young age of 58. And Watts wrote, it's not only that every little organism that exists depends on its total environment. The reverse is true, that the total environment depends on each and every one of those little organisms. So that you could say the universe consists of an arrangement pattern in which every event is essential to the whole thing. Adam keeps going, and it's always you. You see, you have this marvelous capacity to travel, to transform yourself without knowing that you're doing it. Therefore, you keep surprising yourself, and therefore you keep on doing it. You seem to be the victim of a thing that you don't understand. And you seem to conclude your life every time in a wipeout called death, for all of your controlled goals. It's the exact opposite of that. What you call being alive is what allows you to be alive. And every time it happens, it's like it's new. It's like when you're born, it seems like it's the only time. But of course, if the it weren't like that, you wouldn't do it. I find Watts to be very interesting and challenging, somewhat thought-provoking. I think if you think about what he said, many of you might disagree with some of what he says, and I do, but I think he would like that because it would open up an opportunity for conversation. When I first read Adam Keeps Going, and it's always you, I said, what does that mean? And I was sharing my consternation with my husband, and he said, call Ramona. Well, he knows that I have talked to him before, and with Ed. And I have to say, both have been incredibly helpful, and I think we are just so fortunate and so blessed to have such smart, wonderful, good people as leaders in our church, and I think they deserve a little round of applause. Adam in absentia and Ramona and I. Well, it turns out I didn't call Ramona. I think Adam would be very proud of me for figuring this out on my own. I started thinking, well, what does Adam represent? And what he represents is the beginning of human life. And it's always you, that is, we are the ones, obviously, who continue human life. So thinking in it that way, it makes a lot of sense that to say Adam keeps going, and it's always you. I was also interested in his line where he said, it's like when you're born, it seems like it was the only time, oh my gosh, is this guy a Buddhist? Because that sounds like reincarnation. And so I did some research on him, and it turns out he is Christian, but he's very interested in and studied a lot of Eastern philosophy, especially Buddhism, and what he wrote and was very much influenced by that. In fact, there's an interesting anecdote that relates to that. A little bit before he died, he talked to his wife, or it might have been his father, and told him, I am going to return as a red-haired little girl after I die. And so somewhat later, his daughter had a child, and in fact, she was a red-haired little girl. And when she was answering, 6, 8 years old, they took her to see his old house, or it might have been a cabin. And when they got there, she climbed up on the cupboard and then opened another door up above, and she seemed to be looking for something really important. And it turns out that was where Watts kept his booze. That whole thing I thought was really fascinating. So I think that's all I have for you today. Thank you for putting up with all this extra. Thank you, Curt, for your patience. Thank you. No.
Sure what to do here. Can I move it? Am I on?
No.
There we go. Yeah. Yes.
You're on.
That was an incredible introduction. I would just want to say Alan Watts, in my mind, is a synthesizer. He is one of the grand synthesizers, and he's often accused of being Buddhist. He's often accused of being Hindu, and he would say, thank you. Let us begin with a prayer. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts be acceptable to you, O God. I've had to run for my life twice. Once in Dallas, and the other time was a lot more metaphorical than that. Lake Michigan has killed me, or nearly killed me, twice. I can neither run nor swim like I used to because I'm old. A strong undertow would absolutely kill me. Merely pondering such things leads to fear. So I hope that being older and wiser counts for something after November. Because running is something I cannot do. Wordsmiths and snake oil salesmen have gotten really good at playing that reaction specifically. Telling those who absolutely cannot run or hide, that they'll be running soon if they don't cooperate with what's coming their way. And I'm here to tell you that nothing destroys deep thoughts and a lifetime of studying history and philosophy, like the idea of my friends running for their lives or believing that they might have to. It doesn't matter whether it's from a volcano or from an army or from secret police out to disappear you. When fear like that takes hold, God gets very hard to hear and even harder to feel. And the monsters of history have always depended on that fact. I have feared for my own life such that I have lost my mind before and wondered if that was a curse, like feeling too much. This past week, I felt thousands wonder at the same time if the proverbial end just got closer and thus everyone should be reaching for their running shoes. My task this morning is to tell you to be at peace and to keep doing exactly what you're doing, because it's still the point. You are doing and living and gathering as Jesus intended, as love in action. Do that more loudly now if you can. The mission is no mission at all. Don't let the darkness that surrounds you inside you. Don't let it change you. Or as last week we discussed, do not let the idolatry of conformity to anything change you. Especially the most ancient of evils, which is the God King. I have watched this moment approach since 1988, my friend, so the only thing that has surprised me is how awful it feels to see political signage straight out of Nazi PR manuals all over my state at the same week that the United States Supreme Court abdicates its authority to a man who wants to be the first king of America, or in his words, dictator. It's sickening. More sickening because his minions have called us out by name, and their national manifesto, Project 2025, says we're on the target list for insisting on a fact-based, human-centric world. The reaction from all of human history to such a moment as this has been to run and hide, to migrate in search of a place without monsters. But I'm here to tell you that Jesus' instructions was to start speaking and never stop until they silenced you. That is what he did. Thanks to my open-minded parents, I filled my head with filing cabinets full of history, memory, and words. I fast and I pray that I weigh the contents of those filing cabinets against the life I am living today. Then I weigh all that against what Jesus actually did and allegedly said 2,000 years ago. My general theory is no different than millions of others. The teachings of Jesus, if implemented, would change society for the better. They have, over time, like no other teachings ever. The counterforce is the abuse of Jesus' teaching, a thing that happens about once every 100 years, 3 generations, give or take. What you see before you right here is an attempt to implement the teachings of Jesus in a post-Protestant America, or as we say, be the church. After studying the history of the human condition, I am convinced that the truest words in the Bible are still, there is nothing new under the sun. The way I see it, every day new actors are born to play the same parts that have always been played. Evil happens when bad parts are forced upon us. Evil happens when we can't hear the voice of God, and thus can't fulfill our task because of all the fighting, all the guns, all the nonsense. These are dark times, but they are familiar. They are echoes of 1938, frankly, with men with tremendous power are once again declaring that Jesus wants us to be ruled by kings, especially a king who says Jesus a lot. Such kings have always depended on Christians blowing off their homework and nodding as instructed, that idolatry of conformity Adam talked about last week. I have a confession to make, of sorts, a secret maybe. I have never called myself a Christian, not once. And quite frankly, I can't. Primarily because I've read the teachings of Jesus, understand the first 2 centuries of Christianity, and see no association between the two. Jesus, the actual man, and Christianity, the historical movement. As a disciple of the teachings of actual Jesus, I have assumed a bullet was coming my way since high school and that a Christian would pull the trigger. That got more real this past week. The sadder thing is the predictability of it. I never considered myself a Christian because I knew who did it, basically. Living in post-war Germany, my parents blamed the apocalypse they saw on religion, Christianity especially. It didn't require a genius. In any case, dinners at my house often came with lessons about the monsters of fascism. Later, I learned that those conversations happened after my father had visited his friend at the Holocaust survivor. My parents were free to teach us that it wasn't Nazism, an abstract political concept that killed 6 million Jews and 3 million others of various stripes and 100 million Russians in a suicidal land grab. It was devout Lutherans and Catholics who happened to live in Germany, Austria, Poland, France, and the former Czechoslovakia. That's who did it. Catholic priests and Lutheran ministers cheered them on in the name of Christ and Germany, which is Christian nationalism defined. And yet, in the dark scourge of humanity, there is always a small enclave of people who quietly and not so quietly carry light into darkness. When entire religions lose their mind, there will be churches that know the teachings of actual Jesus and understand that it is love that extracts the monster from the man. God's love. A change of heart is one of my favorite signs of the existence of God. What's yours? 3 generations ago, the world learned yet again that power wedded to empty piety leads to death, mass death, and always has. Saith Samuel and wroteth Ezekiel. There was so much death 3 generations ago that the Catholic Church shocked itself awake by what it did between 1938 and 1945. I mean 388 and 1945. Vatican II was the result. Liberation theology, the teaching was the other result. The teachings of Jesus finally being implemented by the Dominican sect of Catholicism. We should do what Jesus said after 2,000 years. Lutherans hummed and whistled, then released a statement. The United Church of Christ, this place, said, we're out of here, to the previous 400 years of their very own Protestant history. That's the church family that changed this place in the 1950s. Or whenever they changed the name on the door, I really don't know. It may change again. What matters is what's said and done. Blind obedience and the compromising of souls cost hundreds of millions of lives, all of them taken in the name of Jesus or belief in his fraudulent pretender. That was the lesson of 1945. You forgot. I knew grandfathers who liberated the Jews of Buchenwald, and I knew a couple of Jewish boys they liberated. I met a grandson lately who desires to serve the next Hitler, and he wears the collar of ministry. This isn't amnesia. Nor is this what happens when 2 generations in a row don't know history. Monsters are the human condition. Monsters are the test to see if we've done our homework. The failure rate among Christians is absolutely terrifying. Our Salem moment is nigh, my friends. But remember, it doesn't matter what swath of imaginary time on earth you draw. The task is the same. Find God in the core of your being and feel how connected you are to every living thing, especially the one next to you. Abundant life, as it turns out, is our only actual evidence for God. I don't even know a describable God, let alone a sky God who shakes his fist at creation. God is Mount St. Helens to me in 1980. God is the unstoppable urge toward life, forever, out of utter devastation, even after Auschwitz. Humans, on the other hand, are as predictable as pimples on prom night. You are not alone in recognizing that everything seemed to have changed and that it simply took a longer time to shake out in the pews. This is indeed some kind of collapse point, and yes, Christian nationalism is surging, but take heart. We are already on the other side of this nonsense, looking freakishly peaceful as Jesus intended. Liberals may be first on the target list, but God within compels us toward life, love, and village harmony. Because every second a child is born, and so the opportunity to get one life and one time right. Every man is Adam, every woman is Eve, every life is timeless, meaning a blank slate in search of God chalk. We aren't the first church in America to inhabit the other side of Protestantism. History is filled with enclaves of Christians who got Jesus right. Ironically, it's Christianity that rarely mentions that. That's part of what I do on Tuesday. I introduce people to the actual saints and prophets of God over the past 5,000 years, because churches haven't or won't. For instance, no one seems to know any of the Irish saints who understood, wrote about, and pushed for the teachings of Jesus in the 8th and 9th century, even when they succeeded. Yet everyone knows about Patrick. Be suspicious. Do research. The authors of the narrative that wrote wrote out the Irish saints were the same authors that wrote in Patrick. The author was English. So is Patrick. Bigotry is part of the human condition. Everything changed in 1938 when the gap between Jesus and Christianity got so wide that Lutherans and Catholics became Christian nationalists who murdered 6 million Jews between 1939 and 1945. Since 1988, fewer and fewer people have cared what happened in 1938, so much so that 1938 is repeating in real time right now. It barely matters. Seriously. If Christ is whom you seek to connect with God as Jesus connected you to God, that's still available. In the depth of the hell Hitler created, humans Dietrich Bonhoeffer and Edith Stein played the part of Jesus, each going to their death saying, absolutely not. I will not. To Hitler's version of Christ as hateful monster, Christ as Aryan myth. The monsters of 1938 didn't look all that different from the monsters of the Nile and the Tigris and Euphrates 4,000 years earlier. A great monster crossing the Rubicon to enslave an empire is the human condition. And it was fascism before the word was invented. My friends, nothing is on the rise faster in this country than the same Christian nationalism that made Hitler infamously seem like the answer to so much poverty and too many Jews in Europe in the 30s. Sadly, we are now beginning to witness all the familiar capitalist, Protestant, and power-hungry wing of the Catholicism salivating over the possibility of representational democracy going down. It's really been a rough week. I've never seen so many ads for representational democracy dying. Propaganda is all over the airwaves, and even the signs of the politicians seem like fascist fan club material. They looked like they did in the 1930s. Those who desire an end of fairness, justice, and representational democracy are the loudest who say Christian, and always the most red, white, and blue. Missing from so much Christianity, of course, is a single point Jesus tried to make clear, and that too is as predictable as clouds. As a historian, I can tell you an even sadder fact, but first I need coffee. Pardon me. The totalitarianism these children of God seek is actually, regrettably, the norm. It is the norm. Christians not recognizing the golden calf in their midst is pathetic, but predictable as rain. That's why they put it in the Bible. So that rather than run, we would simply open the book and say, oh, time to engage. The actual job of being a Christian, after all, was never anything one could get rich from doing, right? Those who read the manual understood that death was probably the outcome. The job was always more like gardening and working in a soup kitchen than being a crusader, but here comes the reminder anyway. Abraham left fascism in Ur so that his offspring wouldn't be polluted by it. Moses left a different river for this exact same reason. 1,000 years later, Ezekiel was led in chains away from the temple, then heard the temple was burned to the ground from his prison cell. God said what she always says, get up. Remember that thing that, when things go south, get up, speak. Baptism is the alternative to peace and prosperity and raising smart children without fear of being either eaten or shot at, or having to serve in uniform to avoid being shot on the street by someone else serving in uniform. The question is the oldest for people of conscience. What does one do when the monsters come? The answer is just as old. You do the right thing, regardless. Because God help you if you don't and you join them. You see that the world, because if you see the world like Caesar sees the world, as Caesar's, you're kind of toast eternity-wise. That's what the entirety of the book actually says. It's still the main it of Jesus. Every man is Adam, every woman Eve. Every birth is the opportunity for God to reside within. Nothing really changes except what's in our trash heaps outside of town. All conditions are momentary conditions, like who occupies the stage right now. You. With every birth, all is forgotten and forgiven. Humans are more like flowers and grass than we know. Thinking is what separates us. Debating ethics and philosophy has been the stuff of the mind for 3,000 years, more or less, but we sprout life from life, more like grass. From a source of life we cannot feel, except when we're tickled, and we call it God. Because that force seems to move in our hearts and in our minds and makes us come into being. Ezekiel is in a predicament we all may know soon. What does one do when the monsters run both temple and citadel? 500 years after Ezekiel, Jesus actually answered that question. As followers of the teachings of Jesus, you remember that God is not in the temple or the citadel. God is inside of you, or not. And if not, there's no life after this. If so, life is eternal. You've already won the prize, so do the right thing. Fear no evil, not even death. For if God is with you, there is no death. That's what Jesus knew. Do this moment on stage right, and you sprout again like daisies. These are terrifying times for historians, but good historians of sacred texts know that our ancient words tell us an incredibly hopeful message. Comfort comes from knowing how we got into dark times, as well as the path out. Rule number 1, Moses' in fact. Thou shalt have no other gods than me. Still means never compromise your soul by dabbling in golden idols. Know the difference between smart monkeys who can run a big corporation or mega church or even an empire and a human with a conscience, with the voice of God within. What has never mattered is the name of that voice or where one imagines it resides. Everyone understands that history echoes if not repeats. The problem with being an historian or a theologian right now is knowing which history is echoing in the canyon of humanity. Every historian worth their salt knows exactly what they're looking at when they see politicians dabbling in oversized signs plastered with stars and patriotic symbols, signaling virtue and pretending mass appeal. Most of the biggest signs conveniently occupying ambiguous real estate, pretending mass appeal. Historians see that sign and hear, "Hail Caesar!" Plowshares are about to be melted into swords again. A critical mass of Americans are living in fear for knowing too little and thus are being too easily to play. while historians and rabbis shake their heads and live in terror for knowing too much about the very same information. I realized for the umpteenth time while watching that movie in 1946, 2 Sundays ago, that I'm among the cursed, that to know history in a time when the masses don't is a curse, and as biblical as things can get. Here's the good news. Ancient problems have long histories, and the first 1,500 years of facing evil is recorded in that great chronicle of Eastern Mediterranean history known as the Hebrew Bible. Along with that is 2,500 years of primary and secondary accounts of winning and losing this fight. The short answer, as Adam discussed last week, is that conformity in this moment is a form of idolatry. It's not weird that Christians are calling for Caesar and rooting for Barabbas. It's biblically predicted and predictable. This is what's weird. This is what's weird. In good times and in bad, the task of the disciple is the same. Be Adam and be Eve. Listen for God. Talk everything out when you don't understand in order to understand. And be prepared at all times to go where God sends you. Do your sacred text homework. That's what me. Fear is the mind killer. That's not biblical. That's doom. But it should. What is biblical is the eternal nature of love, and how it is in fact love that binds us and makes us eternal. Go forth and be the love that makes millions of those ancient darkness people doubt themselves. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. He's done. Now come down to this one. You come to the giving God's work, to God's work portion. We are not a pass the plate church. We are a give as you can, and give when you can, and give how you can, and we just hope to see you next week. So if you know who you are, and you probably know how that symbol works. So let us move right on to the prayers. We have many prayers in our bulletin. There they are listed at the bottom here. I have notes on mine, but I want you to take a look at all those wonderful people there. And to them, I have a couple to add. Been handed in to me. I forgot to mention beforehand that what the white things are for in the card, because it's a little overwhelming to do this when you want to do it once every 6 months or so. But these are to put in your joys and concerns, and if you have any that I don't have on me right now, we will take them seriously. You can hand them later and deal with them then. But anyway, to what we have in the book, I would like to add, where did this come from? Ed Bonsack, is that right? Dell's uncle is home with hospice, and additionally, Emmeline Goodwin has been diagnosed with ovarian cancer. And who put this in? Okay, this is why Tessa's, that's your best friend's mom. There we go. As them to your prayers, I have another. This is my cousin Karen Seeley has pneumonia. It's Diane, right? Right. And had surgery to remove a lung infection. She's in ICU in Jackson.
She's 86.
She's 86. So lung infection is already not cool. No. I make the assumption that people come to church to heal, not to be reinforced, and so that everyone has something going on inside, whether they're saying it or not, whether they're ready or not. And we make no assumptions. Except that God hears you better than I do, better than anyone does. So what I'd like you to understand, I'm not much into praying, but I see God as the ubiquitous force that hears what you just said and what I just thought, whether we like it or not. As dangerous as that may be. So whatever you requested is done. And that's all there is to it. Now, if you will say with me the Lord's Prayer in any manner that you are most comfortable with, or as it is printed. Our God, who art in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For yours is the kingdom, yours is the power, and glory forever. reiterate that you seem to be the victims of a thing you don't understand, and you seem to conclude your life every time with a great wipeout called death, where all your control goes. It's exactly the opposite. It's exactly the opposite. Be daisies, be strong, be light. Get up, speak, and have a lovely day.
Is that right?
Thank you.